Okay, it started.
Right, thank you. We chant the starting prayers. Om Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedam Cha Prahinoti Tasmai Tam Hadevam Atma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Gurave Sarvalokanam, Bhishaje Bhavaroginam, Idhaye Sarva Vidyanam, Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Okay, so when we finished the session last week, we had two people asking two different questions, and so I thought we'll go to these questions one after the other. I think Deepa ma'am had asked, right? The person who asked the question was Srimati Deepa about
I think it was Shvetambari, sir. Is that
Svetambari.
correct, Shvetambari?
Okay, yeah. So
Yes,
whoever it was,
I had
could you,
asked one
yeah,
question.
could you kindly repeat the question for for
Yes.
benefit of others
Mm,
and for my own benefit also.
Okay. Um, Hello, everybody. My question was, how can we become karma yogi, or how can we detach ourselves from the results or the outcomes of our karma, where the outcomes is the necessity? And for that, I had taken one example, a very everyday example, that um, as a parent, when I invest all my efforts in my children, because I want them to become a better person, a better human being, and a better citizen, then the outcome is the most important thing. How can I detach myself from this karma or this
Okay,
outcome?
okay,
Thank you.
right. So we will use this um, bringing up the children and ingraining good qualities in them only for the purpose of example, and after dealing with the example we will see how it can be extended to other such situations. Okay, now the general principle that karma yoga tells all of us, or the principle of karma yoga requires us to understand, is that even if you perform all your actions to 100% perfection, there is still some uncertainty about how the outcome will turn out, because between your action and the outcome there are a lot of factors which are probably unknown to us and therefore not controllable, or maybe even known to us but not under our control. Okay, so you do whatever you're doing, but that doesn't really guarantee the outcome in the way you expect. Okay, so let us take the example of the children, inculcating the children with some good qualities. Of course it's a very important function, and that's the most important duty of the parents. And let's say the parents do whatever they think is the best to you know imbibe these qualities in the children, but the children, fortunately or unfortunately, they come with their own mind, they come with their own vasanas from their previous janmas, and then they are also exposed to a lot of other people around them. They are not always sitting in the home, right? Once the child becomes a little bit old, 7, 8, 9 years old, they develop their own likes and dislikes, no matter how much we may like or dislike their likes and dislikes. Yeah, so see this when a child is born, it only acquires the physical body from its parents. The parents contribute only the physical body. We had learnt about the Karana Shariram and Sukshma Shariram in the previous sessions long back. The Karana Shariram and the Sukshma Shariram, you as parents don't give the child. The child carries the Karana Shariram and the Sukshma Shariram from several past janmas. The same body continues. That Sukshma Shariram might change by out of the vasanas and karmas that the person might have done in their previous janma. So there is a lot of vasana that comes with it. So you are trying to influence a child's vasanas by inculcating some good behavior and good values and all that. Whether the child can absorb them, whether the child can internalize them, whether the child can retain them, and whether the child can recollect those values at the appropriate time is still not 100% under the control of the parents. Okay, so what the parents have to then do is, this is not a one-time activity, right? Unlike many other karmas, which is just a one-time activity, you do the karma once and then the result comes, and then you accept it this way, that way, and then you move on. It's not like this. So bringing up a child is a very long-term project, continuous project, and you have to keep doing it every day. And you probably won't do the same thing for several years. If you see that something is not working, you have to change your tactic in the next week or next month. Okay, so that is what the doing part entails. So the doing part entails in figuring out, okay, what is working, what is not working, how can I improve this input better, how can I influence the child in a different way, and also look at who else is influencing the child and see if you can control that. So if you do all of this without getting emotionally hung up, you should not go into a depression that, oh, my child is doing this or that. So the whole idea of karma yoga is to somehow separate your emotional expectations from the intellectual part. That's a very key attribute that one has to develop, not only for learning Vedanta but also for performing karma yoga. So that the objectification of your emotion takes a long time, even for a very practiced, very shall we say a proficient yogi also. Sometimes the yogi can get a fit of anger, can throw a tantrum because of a situation. He might be a yogi in other words, but on a given day, if something triggers his anger, he could be very angry. But this is the idea of this specific example of bringing up a child. I'm mentioning this. So you have to recognize that even while you may give your best input, the child has to be in a position to take it, and you can't control everything that the child is experiencing, right? The child will go to school, the child will have their own friend circle, the friends may come with their own influences. Very often you find that the children are more influenced by their friends or even the friends' parents than one's own parents. That's possible. It all depends on how close the friends are and so on. And yeah, that's a short answer. It's probably not a very short answer. And so you just have to extend this to every other aspect of life where you think karma yoga has to be applied, but where application of karma yoga doesn't look very simple. Yeah, please, what's your response? Do you think this is satisfying your question, or do you have more follow-up questions?
No, this actually answered my question because I was wondering how can I. The main difference is that I have to emotionally detach myself.
Yes.
That
So
is okay.
very often the parents either feel angry about the child's response, or they sometimes feel Otherwise, sometimes you could even go into depression depending on what the child is doing. And those things have to be avoided. You have to insulate yourself from that and bring your your analytical part of your mind into the fore, and see how you can influence it with slight nudges and slight tweaking here and there. That is how it's supposed to work.
Yes, that actually answered my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, right. And then Shubuji also had this question, which I said was a bundle of several questions. She's there.
Yes, that's right. I'm there, and I hope it's not too loud because I'm still in the car and almost home. But I will start my question.
Mhm.
I find there is a contradiction in the ways that we interpret how karma yoga is supposed to be practiced. Because on the one hand, you get this influence of Lord Krishna, who tells Arjun to go into battle, although he is previously not willing to do so at all, not wanting to battle his own relatives and being a peaceful person and wanting to um, give up on all his worldly goods and go into go into the woods or whatever he wanted to do. And he was told very clearly that it is his duty to stand up and fight and even kill his own, not only his own, but also other foes and enemies. And on the other hand, we learn through karma yoga and through these higher states of enlightenment that you are supposed to, when you get a problem or when you get into a contradiction with somebody, you are actually supposed to detach yourself from, so not to stand and fight and not to retaliate, but to sort of turn the other cheek or to accept it
No,
and
no.
not to get emotionally involved. So
No. Sorry,
no.
sorry. There, I want to
Okay.
correct you. We
Okay.
never talk about turning the other cheek.
Okay. The
Okay.
turning the other cheek is maybe my own
Yeah,
interpretation of
turning the
it,
other
but
cheek is not expected, because see, when even in Bhagavad Gita, I mean,
yeah.
let me maybe I'm interrupting your question. We can continue the question a little later, but I want
Okay.
to set a few things right here. See, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is true that Bhagavan Krishna says, I mean, Arjuna, you should fight. But you have to look at the larger story of Mahabharata. See, Pandavas went to the forest for 13 years, and then 1 year of Ajnatavasa and all that. During those 14 years, the Pandavas did not, want peace, and they didn't want to, not fight. Arjuna was actually raring to fight in all those 14 years. And right up to the point when the armies reached the battlefield, Arjuna's resolve to fight was very, very strong. He had a meltdown when he told Krishna to take the chariot in the middle of both the armies, and then he wanted to inspect the enemy's army. And as he was doing it, his eyes fell on Bhishma and Drona. Okay, this is the exact point when Arjuna's meltdown began, because he had no problem killing Duryodhana or Dushasana or Karna or anybody else. His problem was he cannot selectively kill the Kaurava people. He has to kill everybody without exception, and that would include Drona and Bhishma, and that he didn't want to do. Okay, so in that moment of an emotional weakness, he kind of started lecturing to Lord Krishna and started saying about this is not ethical, blah blah, and all that. And then Krishna had to bring him back to his original mood, which he was carrying all those 14 years, and that he goes through in the 18 chapters or 17 chapters. The first chapter there is no teaching. The real teaching begins from the second chapter and goes on to the 18th chapter. So 17 chapters of teaching were necessary to bring Arjuna back to a proper frame of mind, when then he could enter the fight. And even when he was fighting, he had to hold his emotions under control, because imagine Forget about fighting a battle, forget about killing people and all that. Even a normal activity that you do at your home or at your job, if you are not in a peaceful or quiet frame of mind, if you are not focused on the work you are doing, if you are disturbed emotionally at the back of your mind, you can even spoil your own cooking. Okay, so a very focused mind is required even for the simplest of tasks. Let's say you are sitting down to write an email to somebody. If your mind is not totally focused on the email, and if you are somehow disturbed by some other event that happened earlier, you will not get to draft even 2 or 3 sentences properly. So even for writing a simple email, you need a very focused and clear mind. Okay, so the whole idea or the whole point about detaching yourself from your emotions is just another way of putting that your mind should be in a focused and calm and quiet state, that you are able to see what you are doing and then and there decide on a slightly different action if things are not going the right way at the time of action. Okay, so very often you are cooking your regular meal, and suddenly you don't know if you have put salt correctly or more salt or less salt. Okay, this is a very simple example. And if you have been very focused on your food cooking, then you would know, yes, I measured so many spoons of salt and it is correct, and that would guarantee a good outcome. This is a very simple example. Okay, now you can continue with your questions if there is more to what you are saying.
Yes, I understand. It has made things clearer, but there is this. I mean, in the last session that we had, there was also talk about tolerating duties, something that you detest, self-control, forgiveness for things that have gone wrong, accepting. So calm down the agitated mind and so on. So all this shows me also that the necessity to do
Unpleasant
activities
Yeah.
is certainly there.
Yeah.
And if you get into any kind of a, like with the children, the example earlier on, if you get into any kind of a conflict, it is still better to go into a higher communicative level and try and sort it out and try and accept a situation that you do not actually like in the first place in karma yoga. So I still find there is a little bit of a contradiction with the opposition that is also necessary because you have to fulfill your duties.
I mean,
so when is
really
it right and when is it wrong is actually my question.
I really don't get your point about contradiction. Maybe you could give some examples to say what is contradicting what.
Just like for a simple argument or a simple fight, when is the point when you decide not to push through your points and not to harp on being right, although you know that you are right, and to just give the other leeway and say, okay, I accept it just for the sake of peace. That is very often, usually you know what is right and what is wrong, and you do your duties. Correct. But sometimes it's if there is no solution and you want to, if there is no, I mean, logical end to the disagreement or whatever, when is the point to know, okay, this is the right way that I have to go forward?
See, I mean, this is a very abstract question, so my answer will be equally abstract. Okay. So in any such situation where two people have an argument and there is a disagreement, you would very often find that you are convinced about your position and the other party is equally convinced about their position, and that's the reason why you have an argument in the first place. Okay, if you are able to look at that person's position from his perspective, and vice versa. If you're able to convince the other person to look at your position from your perspective and not his perspective, there will be some meeting point somewhere. Okay, but how do you make the other person look at your stand from your perspective? That depends on who the other person is. I mean, you can't do that with strangers. Okay, I mean, you don't generally get into these arguments with strangers. But if you are having this with a stranger, then you probably need to call the police or lawyer or whatever. I don't know. It all depends on the situation. But let's say it's between friends or between members of the family. You would have known that person for some years or whatever, and so you know what kind of words from you will convince them to change their stance. I mean, they may not completely accept your position, but they may want to climb down a little bit. So you have to try negotiation, and finally, all these things eventually is a cost benefit analysis. So where do you stop an argument is a question of what is the thing at stake. Are you fighting over a crore of a million euros, or is it just a matter of a few hundred or a few tens of euros or whatever? So the cost at stake is also a question. How much of argument is required? So I mean, here is where again that emotional distancing can help. If your thinking is always clouded by that monetary loss or whatever other loss that is bothering you, your line of argument will kind of be a repetitive and useless, futile argument. But if you are able to calm yourself down emotionally and look at it at a very objective level and decide for yourself, okay, what is the worst case scenario? What is the worst thing that can happen? And are you able to live with that worst case scenario outcome? Then you can go full blast. But if you think that worst case scenario is not something that you want to have, then you have to tone down. So I mean, since your question was a very high level abstract question, I'm giving a very high level abstract reply. But with a concrete example, things may become more clear. I'll just pause you for a minute because Sridhar has raised a hand. I'll come back to you after I finish with Sridhar. Sridhar sir, unmute. Sir, please unmute.
Sorry. Yeah. So just building upon Shubhuji's question, so the attachment to the outcome will determine how much we persevere.
How much we persevere. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So if we have a high attachment to a specific outcome, then we try almost indefinitely. Right. And the whole philosophy here seems to be not to have an attachment to the outcome itself. So then the question arises, what is the balance between not having an attachment versus how much effort we put in on a specific outcome? Right. And then the secondary question comes, especially when we are talking about our friends, family, others, kids, whatever. How much are we responsible for their karma?
Okay, we will park that question for a little later. Let me answer your first question. See, when we say attachment, I am actually using that word to mean something like an obsession. Okay, so we all perform a karma or an action because we expect a certain outcome. Okay, without the desire for the outcome, you will not perform that action. Okay, but what I am trying to say is karma yoga is a way of performing the action that you don't bother about the outcome or the quality of the outcome at the time of performing the action. Okay, at the time of performing the action, your focus must be entirely on the doing part, and of course, this assumes that there is a certain time lag between the time you perform the action and the time the outcome comes. Okay, so there could be some cases where the performance and outcome are very immediate, like for instance in driving a car. Okay, so when you're driving a car, every minute you cover some kilometers or meters. Okay, so if you see some kind of a traffic jam ahead, you would slow down here itself. Okay, so that's also a way of, let's say you are in a hurry to reach some place, but then along the way on the autobahn there is a stove. Okay, so now you have to accept that the road is blocked and slow down and brake and stop. You will not want to drive further and create a second accident. It's a very raw and simple example, but I'm just giving it as an illustration. So you perform a certain action, you expect a certain outcome, but the outcome that you expect is not coming the way you expected it to turn out. And at that point, what you have to think is not get disappointed by the failure of the outcome to match your expectation, but to figure out, okay, what else can I do now that can improve the situation. So by shifting the focus from your obsession with the quality of the outcome, you shift your focus on, okay, what can I do next? In the case of the stove, for example, let's say you notice there is a traffic jam just before you get an exit. Okay, so you have the option of taking the exit and avoiding the jam and going through a slower road. Okay, this is just one small example. Okay, or in some cases, I'll come back to the cooking example. Let's say you forgot that you already added some salt. You added a little more salt. Now it is salty. So the corrective action is, some people they put a potato to absorb the salt. Okay, assuming that you're preparing a dish which is compatible with potato. Okay, these are some examples where you focus on. Of course, you have to look at the outcome, because the outcome is the feedback for you to decide on the next course of action. Okay, but then you look at the outcome only with the limited intention of taking feedback and using that feedback as an input for the next decision about the next action. Okay, I'm sounding very shall we say technically logical, like as if you are designing a computer program or whatever, but this is how karma yoga would work in an ideal world. And of course, karma yoga is not easy. You have to practice karma yoga for several years before you kind of become comfortable with it. But at every level, this emotional distancing from the outcome is a key ingredient of karma yoga. Okay, now there was one more hand raised. I think it was Kishori ji.
Guruji, pranam.
Pranam.
Actually, I wanted to just tell Shubhu. Her first question was where to stop and where to, when whatever it is, whether it is argument or doing something, some action. Then I wanted to say that since we are meeting here for spiritual development, the spirituality, when it comes to spirituality, the first thing is moral. So when you do any action, you have to first see whether it is ethical, moral, ethic is there or not. And then accordingly, you can say how far you can go and not. So because the question was abstract, it can be answered many ways. So this was my, so to say, my contribution.
Thank you. So Sridhar sir, now come to the second part of your question. You had a second part which I kind of paused. Now elaborate the second part of your question.
So the second part was, how much are we, or one is doing our duty versus how much are we duty bound towards others' karma?
Well, the simple answer is no. You are not responsible for others' karma. Okay, unless you were a partner in the crime or whatever, unless you had a contribution directly to that karma, you have no responsibility for what the others are doing. Okay, so that part is very clear. Your karma will affect you, and somebody else's karma will affect them. Okay, so that's a very straightforward answer. So what else?
What else? Then what is our duty towards others?
Your duty to others is a question of your relationship. So if it's your parents, then you have to take care of your parents. If it's your children, you have to provide them, all the security and food and shelter and everything until they become independent. And as they grow up, you have to inculcate good morals and values and all that which we all are aware of. And so the duty towards others is situation specific and people specific and relationship specific. And all that, if there are any specific questions, you don't have any duty towards strangers other than being polite. Don't harm them, that's all. Yeah, don't cause them any harm. Okay.
So the duty towards others is still limited, or let's say constrained towards what we are meant to do for them in our roles, right?
Yeah.
And it is not extending. I mean, the whole detachment part and not getting too attached with the outcome is also about what people choose for themselves. Is It's sometimes, depending on the closeness of the relation, it is very hard to be unaffected by the outcomes of others' decision. But
Yeah.
still, what is prescribed here is about not getting carried away by the decision of others, right?
Yeah, true. See, to the extent you can help a situation, you help. So if you, for instance, felt, I could have helped, I did not help, and you feel guilty about it, that's a different story. But in a given situation, if you figure out that you are able to help and you must help, and the situation will improve with your help, it is better that you extend your help and contribute whatever you can.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's a very dynamic thing. So at
Yes.
every point you have to keep looking. Okay, is there something I should be doing that I'm not doing, or is there something that I'm doing that I'm not supposed to be doing? So that question is always there. So it's a very dynamic thing.
Yeah, it is a dynamic thing, and it's a dual thing also, right? Like we say, dhanam.
Hmm.
It is our duty to give
Hmm.
to those who are in need, and that our giving is always influenced by someone who is willing to take it,
Yeah, correct.
right? So
Correct.
in that sense, then this duty, like you say, is quite often I see people getting totally depressed by the let's say desired outcome not being there.
Okay, so
They
I
they
think I'll
they
you
fail in
just
their duty.
you hold your question. You hold your question for some more time. Two more people have raised their hand, so let me
Yes,
go to
sure, sure.
Shwetambriji ji first, then Ekta. I'll return to Shubhuji, and finally I'll come back to you. Okay.
Okay. My question was also related to Shubhuji, where her question was very interesting. She said, where to stop ourselves. That actually made me think of a situation I had, and I have a question that suppose I'll give a concrete example. Suppose I am a person, I am a soul, which has some carried karma with me,
Hmm.
and some sanchit karma.
Hmm.
And in this life, I am supposed to perform a duty. Let's say, for example, I am to become a scientist. Just an example.
Hmm.
And then I keep on trying hard, but I always face failures. And this leads me to think, where should I stop? Should I still keep on pursuing? I don't know whether it's my karma and I'm supposed to become a scientist. I should just give up, say after 100 of failures, then I should just give up, or I should just keep on trying. How do I know what is my karma and what is my duty in this life?
Okay. So, first of all, you will not really know what your karma is. Okay. So, karma is not something that is visible to your eyes or your mind. Okay. So, that is the first point. So, if there is a karma that you will be a scientist, you will become a scientist. Okay. So, you will not fail. Yeah. Just to take your own sentence, you said, if I have a karma to become a scientist, you make an attempt to become a scientist, you will become a scientist, because your karma carries it in, in your karma it is there. So you will become a scientist. Okay. So again, you should understand exactly what this karma thing is all about. I think I explained it in one of the earlier sessions. Karma is not fate. Please understand, karma is not fate. It is not determinism. Karma merely provides you with a certain set of circumstances in which you can exercise your free will within the limitations of that circumstance. So the free will and karma, they always go together. Okay. So to talk about a karma which will enable you to become a scientist is a little contradictory in terms, because karma simply provides you with a certain environment where you can, let's say you have a favorable karma to become a scientist. It will simply provide you with a favorable set of circumstances in which you can try to get your scientist status. And in spite of that favorable circumstances, if you have not made an appropriate attempt, then that outcome will not come. Okay. So the question itself carries some inbuilt contradictions. So maybe you should look for a slightly better example. And while you think about a better example, let me go to Ekta ji. She probably wants to say something. She's raised her hand.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste, ma'am.
My question is a bit different from all other who have asked. So my question is, why do we exist in a very first place? First of all, it's really very, because the other have asked questions. I have been learning Jyotish for 6-7 years now, and I understand all these things through the horoscope. And so, but when they say Ketu is moksha pradayak, but we don't know what is moksha, and the where soul goes. And first of all, why God is so mystery, why so much mystery is there in the universe, and why can't we know God that easily?
Okay. Now, I have to ask you a very fundamental question. I think you have been attending all the sessions from the very first week, right?
Yeah.
So now, coming to your question, why do we exist? Okay. So when you say why do we exist, what is your definition of we? What is we?
All human beings.
No. Let's take about you. Let's take you. Is it your body? Is it your intellect? Is it your mind? What is the definition of you?
Yeah, that is where I am very confused. Like, I'm soul, I'm my thought, I'm my body. I don't really understand all this thing.
Okay. So let me just stop you there. I think I explained all this in a very systematic way in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So there was a class, maybe it was the 3rd week or the 4th week. I said that anything that you can objectify is not your true self. Anything that you can experience with your sense organs, anything that you can objectify is not the true you. So if you apply that rule, finally the Chaitanyam or the consciousness is your real true nature. And the body, the mind, everything is just a temporary vesture. It's like a temporary dress. You know, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a shloka. There is a shloka in the 2nd chapter, I think. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinnati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. That's the shloka. So there Krishna says, just like we change our dress once the dress gets dirty on a daily basis, the jiva changes the body from janma to janma once the body is worn out. Okay, but that's a temporary answer, because then you will ask, what is a jiva? Okay, so the jiva, I also explained in 3rd week or 4th week that the jivatma is a reflected consciousness, reflected from the mind. So there is an original consciousness, there is a mind which is a reflecting medium, and the mind is capable of reflecting the original consciousness, and there is a reflected consciousness that pervades and enlivens the mind. That reflected consciousness gives you an apparent feeling that I feeling in your immediate experience, that I feeling seems to come from the mind. But the mind itself is inert matter, dead matter. And so that I feeling that you get in your mind is basically coming from the reflected consciousness. And the reflected consciousness does not have an independent existence. So the I feeling eventually comes from the original consciousness, which is Brahman. And that original consciousness is common to all of us. My original consciousness and your original consciousness and others' original consciousness is all one and the same. And that is the, I think I repeated this sentence last week also. Okay, so that is the point from which you have to look at the world. And once you say that I am the original consciousness, which is the original consciousness in every other being, then that original consciousness is ever existing. There is no way it cannot exist. It is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Okay, and it is existence with a capital E. Okay, and only until you know that your existence, your true nature is that existence, Paramatma, Brahman, you will keep asking these questions. Why do I exist? So your question is, why does my body exist? So you have to modify your question to say, why does my body exist? Why does my mind exist? That is explained by your horoscope. That is explained by your horoscope. Now let me come to moksha. Okay. So in Advaitam, moksham is nothing but knowing and understanding and owning up this teaching that I am Brahman. That is moksha. There is nothing
That
beyond.
is why, okay. I mean, that is why Ketu represent detachment.
Well, that I don't know. As a Jyotish expert, you should be knowing that better. I have heard that Ketu is Jnanakarakan and all that. Okay. But I don't know the exact explanation because I am not a Jyotish expert. But since you have studied Jyotish for 7 years, you probably have a lot of backing to, justify that statement.
Yeah.
But the point is, in Advaitam, the word moksham or liberation is to understand and own up and get convinced that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not this intellect, I'm not even my karana shariram. I am truly speaking, I am consciousness which is not connected to any of these things. That is very important point. The
Okay.
Chaitanyam or consciousness has no connection to anything that you see in this world, because the world gets its reality borrowed from Brahman. So the world appears to be real, but really speaking, the world is unreal, and you, the consciousness, is the real entity.
Yeah.
This is the teaching. Yeah.
And what must be God's purpose creating all this? What's his?
Again, you are sliding back into the question. See, once you realize that I am Brahman, see, what is God? Tell me, what is your definition of God?
So since I'm in, in Maya right now, I don't. I feel like I'm still. Want to understand all these things. Like,
okay, wait. You are in Maya. Who is you? You are again talking about your mind. See, the problem, the language that you use to frame these questions very clearly says that you're still identifying yourself with your body and mind.
Yes.
So that's one point of view, and that point of view is required for carrying out your activities in this world. But that's only a transactional reality. Let me take you back to the swapna or dream example. Okay. Now you are in a dream. And let's say you are going to the Ranthambore forest or Gir forest or wherever, where you have tigers and lions and all that. And then something happens and you are attacked by a tiger or by a lion in dream. In dream. And then you run for your life, and then you are panting, and you are seeing that the tiger is approaching you very quickly, and your heart is beating very fast, and then at that point you wake up. The tiger is just a few inches away from you, and you wake up. Terrified. You are terrified when you wake up. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you open your eyes and see you are in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to look around for a tiger around in your bedroom?
No.
Yeah. So when you were in the dream being chased by a tiger, you had identified yourself at that moment with your dream body, and that identification with your dream body lent a lot of reality to the dream world and the dream tiger that you were experiencing. But once you wake up, you no longer associate with your dream body, and you realize that the dream tiger did not really exist.
Yeah.
Okay. Now just transfer this example to a higher plane. Just one plane more. Now you are in a waking world. You are in a waking world, and you face all sorts of difficulties in life, all sorts of challenges, and all these challenges cause you pain and trouble, exactly how the dream tiger caused you in the dream. Okay, and then you attend Vedanta class, and then you now know that this body is not you. Your true nature is something which cannot be affected by whatever is happening in this world. That is the equivalent of waking up from the dream and realizing that there was no tiger. Okay. So I suggest you remember whatever I said in the last 5 minutes, including the dream example. Think about it. And next week we will next week I'm not here. We'll have this session after 2 weeks. Okay. So next Tuesday I'm going somewhere else. So we'll have this 2 weeks later. I think that will be 2nd of October, if I'm right. Yeah. Am I right? So next week is wait, let me see. Next Tuesday, 24th, 1st of October.
And 1st of
Yeah,
1st
first
October.
October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our next meeting will be on 1st October. So until 1st October, you have the time to think about whatever I said, and then you let me know whether you still have questions.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So returning to
Thank you.
Shubhuji, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm
It was
here.
a big pause, but I
Yes.
have not forgotten you.
No. I think I've gotten a bit of clarity. My previous question was how to differentiate between retaliation, acceptance of what negative actions were happening to me. Is it because of a higher cause to make me learn from it? Is it the destiny for a higher reason? Because everything happens, is it the way I have to travel to gain a higher spiritual level? So what I have understood from you is to emotionally distance myself from the contradictory, from whatever is happening, whatever the contradictory situation is, and be solution oriented. And if it doesn't work, if you measure the checks and balances, then also accept it. So is that right? Is that what you
Yeah.
have told me?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, when you perform your action as a karta,
Right.
you perform your action so dedicatedly and so faithfully and sincerely as though you are performing a puja.
Right.
Okay. And then the outcome comes to you, you accept it as a Ishvara Prasada. That's called Prasada Bhava.
Okay.
Okay. So the karta is supposed to have a Ishwararpana Bhava. The karta, as a doer, you have an Ishwararpana Bhava, and as a bhokta, the receiver is called bhokta. As a bhokta, you have a prasada bhava. When you go to a temple, you get some prasad. So you don't bargain with the priest to give you a little more or little this or that.
No,
Okay,
but
the prasad is what
the
you
prasad
get
is
on
usually
your hand.
always sweet. The prasad is usually always sweet in the temple. And even if I perform my actions in the way I think is correct, the prasad that I get back may not be something that I am fond of or appreciative, but I still have to accept it.
Exactly.
Right?
So whatever
Okay.
falls in your hand, you accept it and move on. That's how you treat all the results of all your actions. Okay. So
Okay,
Rani
fine.
ji raised her hand. If you're okay, I'll go to Rani ji. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Rani ma'am.
Yeah, Vasudevanji, I just want to know, you told karma yoga and all these things, na? So you have to do to do the runams and so on, daily puja and so on. So that you do, but sometimes you won't be able to do and so on. So that will again generate a negative karma.
Yeah, this is a good question. So what the Bhagavad Gita says is that the karma, not the karma yoga, karma which you perform out of a desire for the outcome has to be performed perfectly, 100%. Okay, otherwise it will not give you the benefit. Whereas karma yoga, even if you perform the karma yoga not so perfectly, a little imperfectly, to the best of your abilities, it will not give you any papam.
Okay.
Okay, so the shloka there is pratyavayo na vidyate. That is the second half of the line. I'll see if I can get the first half of the line. Pratyavayo na vidyate. Shloka number 40, second chapter. नेहाभिक्रमनाशोस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात्. Okay, so if you perform karma yoga, as a part of karma yoga, when you perform any action, even if you are not doing it to perfection, it will not get you any papam, because you are not performing that action out of an expectation of punyam.
Okay.
You are doing it more as a duty.
Okay.
And on a certain day, maybe you are sick or you have to go somewhere else, and you are not able to do it. Fine, but you should not make it a habit to take that excuse and duck the duty continuously. That
Okay.
becomes a problem.
Okay. So when you know like Devaruna, like you when you are like you born now, so Devaruna, so you have to pray, and to do the Devaruna. And Pitruruna, then for our forefathers, then you do the rituals.
Yeah.
Sometimes you miss that, and then you like whether it will continue like this life, whatever I missed, it is missed. Like then next life again, you have those things. How to cover that these missings? Like you have to do 365 days to pray to do the Devaruna, but some days you are not doing. So, but that days you won't get back again, and if you go to next life, then again that life you have to perform your thing, so the debt is continuing with you, na? So how you come out of that runa?
Okay, see, all these rinas that I talked about, the Panchamaha Yajna,
Mhm.
they are all guidelines for living one's life in the Dharma Shastra plane or the Vyavaharika plane or the what is the other word? Vyavaharika plane or the Ajnanis plane. Let me put it that way. Okay,
Yeah.
but once you come to Vedanta and understand that I'm not really this body, I'm not really this mind, and once you get that Vedantic knowledge,
Mhm.
You are transcending karma. It's so you can, a sannyasi can give up karma. And to answer the previous point, there are always some prayaschitta that you can do to compensate for something that you missed doing in the past. That's also there.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's say some pitru karma you were not able to perform in the past. So our shastras say that you can go to Prayag or Kashi or Gaya and do a Gaya Shraddham, and that will compensate for something that you missed. Okay, and generally, if the tithi falls on a particular month and you are not able to do the tithi on that particular month, you can perform the Shraddham on the same tithi in the next month or the month after that. All those are allowed. Okay, so it is not like some very strict punishment that is waiting for you or anything. There is always room to make some compensation, but all these are for people who do not yet know that they are not their body, not their mind, not their intellect, and they are still identifying with their body and jivatma. The moment you come to Vedanta and learn this secret, or all this that we have learned, it's supposed to be a very secret teaching. Okay, and once you learn the secret that aham brahmasmi, my true nature is Brahman, then you don't have to worry about the next janma at all, because with this knowledge you'll most probably not have another janma. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Thank you.
Shubhuji, is there still some
Yes.
question?
No, actually, I'm quite happy. Thank you very much. I'm
Wonderful.
quite satisfied.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of this today's session. It's almost 1 hour from we started. What I want to know is, I said next week I'm not here. 2 weeks later we're going to meet. So do we have active questions which we can discuss in the next session, or is everybody's question settled? And what's the view here in this group? Yeah.
I think we can continue with whatever you had planned originally for
Okay.
your
Yeah,
I second
Vedanta.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's a good suggestion. Thank you very much for that. But the thing is, I have covered, broadly speaking, almost all the points. And what I can do now is to refine whatever I've already told. I am not going to tell anything new as such.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not going to give any new points, but I'll probably
Yes.
elaborate and deepen some topic here or there.
Yes.
And to do that, I need some kind of a guidance. Okay. What is the topic that I should be talking about? See, I don't want to come and talk something just to show that I know this or that. That's not my intent. Okay.
No,
So
but
I
I
should talk
think that
about something that's relevant to the people who have assembled and what they want to hear. That's very important.
but you really organize your talk so well that I think that you can do it for us. You
I
can
mean,
choose a
I don't have a
particular.
problem. I
Yes.
can come and say some random things. Whether that will
No, you will never say random things.
yeah. Yes, ma'am. You raised your hands.
Am I? It's me.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Shubhuji,
Yeah. What
yeah.
we could also talk about, because I was a bit confused then, was your differentiation between karma and karma yoga. I sort of got the feeling that you said if you do the one completely thoroughly and with your whole heart, that's the right way to do it. If you don't with the other, it doesn't matter. Now, is that right?
Yeah, true.
Okay.
So when somebody is doing a karma, you really don't know whether he is a karmi or a karma yogi. Okay. That only the doer will know, because the differentiation of the karmi from a karma yogi is entirely in the mental attitude with which the person is doing the action.
Exactly.
So maybe we should note this as a point for elaboration in the next week.
Okay, fine.
Thank you so much. Adhyatmavari raised hand. What's the point?
Yes, sir. No, I second what Shubhu ji said about this Karmi and Karma Yogi, but I also like the fact that you bring in the Bhagavad Gita shlokas. This is very interesting for me. I'm not saying you should teach the whole Bhagavad Gita, but I like the references to the specific shlokas.
Okay.
So
Great. Okay. Then Ekta ji, you raised your hand.
Yes. So I want to know from your perspective on Jyotisha, what our Shastra says about it. Jyotish is itself is a Shastra, but still it's like many people have how would I put it? It's a kind of occult science, they say, and I don't. So that's why I wanted to know what's your thoughts on this.
Okay. So as I made a request last week, it would be nice if all of you noted down your question or point and remember to raise it when we convene after 2 weeks, so that we will take up the thread without losing the thread. Okay. Yeah, we can discuss that. I'm not a Jyotish expert anyway, but I can tell you whatever 2 bits I can tell you, and then we can have a discussion. Yeah, Sridhar sir, your question.
Yeah, so in my mind, at least, there is a confusion between two reference points. So one, we say we are our true nature is the absolute, and everything is everything that can be objectified is part of the vyavaharika or the illusion, right? So this is what we say is our ultimate goal to achieve from the point of moksha. But on the other hand, all the duties and all the karma yoga, everything we say is directed towards this vyavaharika dharma.
Yeah.
Right. And I think here is where my major confusion lies as to when we focus on the vyavaharika more and more, and our dharma and our rituals and the consequences out of the more we focus there, the more we forget about our true nature, and then get somehow, let's say, submerged into the not samsara, but the vyavaharika stuff, the karma and the karma yoga, whatever. Right.
Good
so
point.
the whole point, I think, is to be in the world but not be of it, right? So if I can quote some other words I have read.
Yeah.
But
so are you making a statement, or are you making a question? I'd like to understand that
My
first.
question, right? So my question is, quite often in these discussions, I find myself somehow stuck between the Vyavaharika stuff versus the absolute stuff. So what is our duty to the Vyavaharika versus what is our inclination towards the absolute, right?
Okay, so you can also note this down as a question to bring it up in the next session after 2 weeks. And so these are all good talking points using which we can clarify a few more ideas here and there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think everybody's hands are down. I think nobody else has any questions as of today. So if you still come up with some questions in the next 2 weeks until we meet next time, please remember to note it down on a paper or somewhere and bring it up when we meet. And so we'll close today's call here and we'll chant our closing prayers and then say goodbye. Yeah. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnam